Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal. We're about to go live here on Newstalk 1040. Stand by. We are waiting for that to go live. Show number 31. It's going to be awesome. We're going to talk New Hampshire primary and so many other things. Joined by Paula Villarreal. And just get ready. It's going to be fun.
Its management, staff, or advertisers. Welcome to the John Villarreal Show. Now, here's John.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal here on Newstalk 1040. Exciting day. Unbelievable. Hey, the New Hampshire primary is already here. Almost here. We are on the eve of that. It is tomorrow on Tuesday. It's Monday, January 22nd, 2024, here in the greater Tampa Bay area. I don't care where you're listening to me. If it's Clearwater, downtown St. Pete, Tampa, Wesley Chapel, Brandon, Bradenton, Sarasota, where I'm at. So many things going on. Lots and lots of news. Oh my goodness. There's so much. Paul, there is so much news here. We're joined by Paula Villarreal. We're live now on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, obviously on Newstalk 1040, and we definitely appreciate that. Sponsored by the Doherty Auto Group and Maserati and Alfa Romeo of Sarasota, and we're loving that. We appreciate that. A lot of great cars down there. Come down and see us there at on South Tamiami. It is awesome. 7641 South Tamiami, and come and see some awesome Maserati and Alfa Romeo vehicles there. But first of all, I'm going to talk about what's awesome. Oh my gosh, this primary has just gone. First of all, Trump just slammed the door. Let me just get all my stuff together here. Let me make sure I've got everything together here. Do we have it right here? Oh, it changed up a little bit. Wait a minute. Okay, there we go. Trump just slammed the door on Nikki Haley's primary campaign right there. But who else did that is Big Ronnie D. Rejection. He's dropped out. He has dropped out, ladies and gentlemen. And not only has he dropped out, but he did what I said he should. He did what I predicted, in my opinion, to do. First, Vivek did it. Then Ronnie D did it. Governor Ron DeSantis, best governor in Florida's history, in my opinion, at least recent history. He not only dropped out, but he endorsed President Trump. And I got to say, that's the move. Tremendous move. This now makes Ron DeSantis much more viable for 2028. It also really puts a checkmate, if you will, on the Nikki Haley campaign. I don't know where they go from here or what they're going to try to do. And that campaign it's all over. Senator Scott has endorsed Governor DeSantis. Lindsey Graham has endorsed Governor DeSantis. Nikki Haley's going to lose her own state. And, it's just done. But I can hear the haters right now. But John, wait a minute. We are the country club Republicans here. We're the country club Republicans. We're the interventionalists. We want to do. We're into the big military spending and all this. And did I mention all the different conflicts and the people at the National Review and all these other places, they really like Nikki Haley. And do you know that she was an ambassador to the UN? Listen, stop. You got to get some help. Because I'm telling you right now, 45 is about to become 47. 45 is about to become 47. Can I say that one more time? 45 is about to become 47. Okay? Governor Haley, I'm not trying to be a punk or anything like that. You got to think about, and there was a good article here, I may refer to it, and I know Paul's all over this situation, that basically the main block of support for Governor Haley, Ambassador Haley, are Democrats. These are the kins or just a super small sliver of Republicans that are like, never Trumpers, neocons, country clubbers, Mitch McConnell, whatever you want to talk about. Super small sliver of Republicans. that are still there. Almost no conservatives, okay? So if you see these self-identified Republicans and conservatives, I mean, just massively. And Governor DeSantis looked at that, looked at his polls, looked at who his supporters are and all this. I'm not in his head. I'm not part of that campaign or anything like that. But what I said clearly is there's not a path. You had a great governorship. Your campaign is wrecking you. It's doing tremendous damage. You cannot win. Get out, endorse Trump. Basically the same thing I said with Vivek and stuff like that, because they both try to get a little too cute, little too excited there during the campaign. And all you're going to do is just wreck yourself. If you're going to play Don Quixote and, you and the horse are going to smash up against that windmill, and it's not going to be so great. And they saw it and they got out and they did the right thing and they endorsed President Trump, and now it's all good. I mean, President Trump has said that he has retired Ron DeSanctimonious as a title. And Nikki Haley, oh, there's just one guy and one gal. Just stop, dude. Stop. Can you just, I mean, I'm sick of Nikki Haley. Listen, I'm not accusing anybody of anything or whatever like that, but just the whole, can we just stop with the whole identity stuff? I mean, we get it. Nikki, we get it. Okay. First of all, you look like a total puppet. Okay. And I'm talking behavior. I'm not talking about anyone's looks. I want to be that very, very clear. And we're for peace, love, freedom, opportunity, equality for everybody and all that type of stuff. I want to put that out there. What I'm saying is this campaign from 20, 30 years ago, this campaign of identity politics, I mean, Vivek had it right. People are done with it. They are sick of it because economics, it goes back. I have so much to talk about here. I got to bring in Paul because I got to get him some air and take a breath here. But people are, this is this show is going to move quick because we have so much to talk about right here. And look, here's the bottom line. Governor Haley, she just looks. I mean, I don't know how to say this, Paul, without sounding like a punk. But let me try to diplomatize this a little bit. This campaign has severely diminished her in terms of, in my opinion, in terms of anyone thinking that this is someone of serious gravitas, of all that type of stuff. It has nothing to do with anything other than, she'll say straight up, the Civil War thing, saying, oh, I never said that. Oh, here's the clip of you saying that. Oh, changing this position. Oh, I'll never run against President Trump. Oh, I'm running for president. I mean, there's just so many things there. It just looks like she's completely out of touch. It seems like, Vivek went so far as say Nikki Haley equals corrupt in the debate stage. I'm not saying that. I'm not alleging anything. But it just definitely seems like the concerns of the elites, whom a lot of are backing, and someone said this was a great point, and I apologize. I really want to give credit. When you have Ken Langone, okay, conservative founder of Republican, founder of, in my opinion, of Home Depot, and Charles Koch, okay, the libertarian type of, Americans for Prosperity, and Reid Hoffman, and we founder of LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. We're live on LinkedIn right now, whatever like that. But Reid Hoffman's policies, politics seemed a little bit different than Ken Langone and Charles Koch. So if the Koch brothers and Reid Hoffman are both back in the same candidate, what does that tell you? And, and there's another thing, article out there just excoriating the billionaire class, who basically one of the quotes was basically they know nothing about politics and they're idiots and stuff like that, but you're just dumping money in this type of, and I think that we're at a point now where, and I said this before, everything is so real post-pandemic and with this malaise, quasi-recession, whatever you want to call it, going on. I mean, there's just a lot going on and people are feeling really, really bad. We've got high interest rates running away, and this Bidenomics is so bad. I mean, it really harkens back to the 70s with Jimmy Carter. And people want real solutions. They don't care about all the stuff you're going to talk about. Oh my God, the threat to democracy is that it's not that. It's like Maslow's hierarchy, stuff like that. Like yes, Carville had it right. You have to feed your family, before you can worry about the nice art painting over there. And I'm not saying it free. I mean, again, I don't want to get into definitions, and that's all silliness. The reality of it is that right now for most people, they are very concerned about very real things, whether it's security, border, what's being taught in the schools, their kids, safety, having a job, layoffs, all that stuff. And they need a candidate that speaks to this. And when you see someone that seems like they're more in it for themselves than for you, that's a problem. Paul, I've covered a lot of ground here. Let's pull some of this together. You know how I get. There's so much has happened within the last, I would say, 5 or 6 days. It's not even funny, but this primary season's almost over, don't you think?
I do. And I think there's a very good chance that it essentially will end tomorrow after New Hampshire. First, let me just say what's going on for all the 1040 listeners out there. And of course, everybody listening to us on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, and other places. Now, you mentioned about Nikki Haley and her supporters being heavily Democrat. I was just looking up, and 40% of her voters in Iowa said that they would vote for Biden over Trump. So that gives you kind of a picture of what we're talking about here. Also, you said about the kitchen table issues versus these theoretical issues about democracy and this type of thing. I completely agree. I've mentioned this numerous times on this show. Nobody here where I live in central Pennsylvania is thinking about democracy. They're thinking about inflation's too high. They don't have enough money to cover costs. They don't care about the rest of that stuff. Finally, you said about Nikki Haley and kind of what effect this campaign has had on the image of her, in at least in my opinion. I came into this campaign thinking Nikki Haley was pretty capable, pretty intelligent, pretty good, whatever person you want to talk about. And now, after watching her out on the stage, I've seriously lost the thought that she has a lot of gravitas. I just don't think that she was as good or as capable of a candidate as I thought she was. We saw the same type of thing happen with Governor DeSantis in a little bit of a different way, which is everything looked great until he got out there. And once he got out there, it didn't look as good anymore. Whereas President Trump, and we've talked about this before, President Trump is better than his campaign. Whereas the other candidates, certainly with Haley, her campaign is better than her. And that is because, of course, she is being propped up by a variety of moneyed people, as you just said, with Reid Hoffman, et cetera, and Democratic strategists that are good. So, yes, I think that there's a very good chance that after tomorrow night, we will basically be looking at a two-person race, meaning Joe Biden versus President Trump.
I think that's right. And there's some people like, oh, the Democrats they're going to extend it. They're going to extend it. And Nikki Haley's still there. And we need a backup. The Republicans, we need a back just in case. And listen, players, we've had more news. And Paul, let's go over this real quick. We've had more news on the whole, potential, the different cases against Trump. Some on the politically on the Republican side. Excuse me. Would use the term lawfare potentially, and I'm not alleging that. But now this whole situation with the Atlanta DA, there's a lot of news reports on it. Things are unraveling very quickly. The idea that you're going to keep Trump off the ballot, or if we just get a conviction, then the voters are going to turn against him. The reality is this. It's going to be Trump versus Biden. We see the same silliness there on the Democratic side. Now, there's rumor it's going to be Gavin Newsom. They're gonna pull it. It's really going to be Gavin. I've seen what didn't Bill O'Reilly say that? I mean, there's a number of people that have said things like that. And then it was, it's Michelle Obama. It might be Michelle Obama. And now I'm hearing some people even float that, they're running Nikki Haley to switch her over to the Democrat. Like there's just a lot of craziness out there. I've always thought it's going to be, much to the chagrin of the media and a lot of pundits out there, and maybe, Axelrod and some of the Obama alumni and stuff like that. I think it's going to come, in my opinion, potentially, it's going to come right down to Trump versus Biden, but not unlike President Biden. I think for both candidates, very important who that VP pick is. So Do you agree that it's going to be Trump versus Biden, Paul? Do you think that anything's changed? What do you make of these different rumors on both sides? And who do you think the VPs are going to be on both? I mean, I don't think President Biden is going to be able to change Vice President Harris. And who do you think? We'll talk about that. And listen, you can call in 1040 audience. Call the News Talk line right here, 727-587-1040. 727-587-1040. That's a question. That's a question for next segment. And even now, if you're getting fast, who should President Trump pick as his vice president? A lot of people are saying Vivek. Now, President Trump, I mean, there's a lot of people that were, and Bannon talked about in the war room. A lot of people are saying, oh, we're going to put Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, that's why she should stay and he should be, and it's going to unite people and all that type of stuff. Well, no, thank you. And in fact, Trump shut that down. That's not going to, and he called her bird brain. What do you make of all this, Paul?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's any way that Trump is going to pick Nikki Haley as VP. I just think that's not on the table. And as you said, he said that. There is speculation. President Trump himself spoke with Bret Baier, Fox News, this last Saturday. And Baier was talking to him about this. Trump basically said, look, I got somebody in mind, and there's about a 25% chance that it's going to be that person. So he kind of made the insinuation that he hasn't picked the person yet. Sebastian Gorka, Dr. Gorka, he said that he knows who it is going to be, and that's going to be a man. As far as who I want, I personally, and I've said this on X, I like Ben Carson. I just like Ben Carson. I think he's really good. Now, President Trump himself has said that he does not think that the pick is going to make that much of a difference, and that historically it doesn't make much of a difference. It's the top.
He said that. I remember that.
As far as coming back to who's it going to be, the Democrats, Biden, I don't think Biden's going anywhere. We heard this last week. Cindy Adams, a gossip columnist for the New York Post, was talking about Michelle Obama, and she heard something from 2022, and da-da-da-da. Of course, we've heard the Gavin Newsom stuff. Look, Biden is already running ads here in Pennsylvania. Do you think they're really going to be invested money like that if he's not going to be on the ticket?
Right.
I just don't think you can possibly pull him off at this point, and I don't think you want to, because as much as people like James Carville and others think that there's some magical candidate out there who would outperform Biden, the truth is, based on the polling, Biden does better than any other Democrat against Trump. And so I think they're stuck with him. I don't think he's going anywhere. And honestly, I don't think he wants to step down or stand down for anybody else. And if you were him, why would you?
Well, you've got all these other things going on. I mean, you've got all the stuff with Hunter going on, and potential impeachment going on. You've got, there's still all the stuff with Ukraine and Israel. There's just so much going on right there. And yeah, I mean, I haven't seen really the president in any recent memory that wants to do just one term, right? I mean, so we had, it was back to FDR, who did 4 terms, right? And so I think it's very, very interesting out there. What do you make of, we need to do this too. I mean, let's take us inside the Nikki Haley campaign right now, speculatively, of course. How bad is that situation? Meaning that, like, what would you think's being said right now when DeSantis from DeSantis dropping out forward? I mean, are they in crisis mode? Are they excited? Do they care? What do you think their end game is? Do they think they can win in New Hampshire? And now, do you think that there's any way they can win in New Hampshire? New Hampshire has an open primary. I think it's same-day registration. There's been reports in different years about busing in Democrats from Massachusetts and all kinds of different things that have happened there. She's got the endorsement of Governor Sununu there. What do you make of just the state of mind potentially and morale in the Haley campaign right now? What do you think their goals are? How realistic do you think they are?
Well, I think there's a heavy facade of optimism on the front. But if you're looking at the daily polls, and there's a daily tracking poll being done by Suffolk, and today's number, the first number that was put out since DeSantis dropped out, it's Trump 57, Haley 38, and undecided basically 5. So even if she got all 5 of that would be 57 to 43. She's down 14 points. Is that going to change in 24 hours? Very unlikely. So I think in my opinion, they kind of know what's coming. They kind of know what's going to happen. Governor Sununu himself, who has been her biggest supporter, has been basically playing down expectations the last few days, saying, oh, she wanted a strong second place. Well, that's not what you said about a week or 10 days ago. So let me just mention this because you brought this up.
Go ahead.
Bonnie Willis, the Fulton County DA down in Georgia. Yes, and I have heard, it was reported today on Breitbart that I believe the Georgia Senate will be opening an investigation of her, including subpoenas. So yeah, that could just completely sidetrack that investigation. And of course, that makes all of the legal cases against Trump look bad, in my opinion. Because if one looks bad, they all look bad.
Well, and we also
that
had
is
it all. I mean, look at in New York with the DA, Alvin Bragg over there. I mean, these cases are I don't want to say they're looking worse and worse, at least in the public's mind, in my opinion.
Totally, 100%. And everybody knows that. Trump knows it, which is why he's been bringing it up every single time, all the time that he can. He's bringing it up at rallies. He's bringing it up in interviews. It's a winner for him. And it should be, because it's been, look, I mean, the case is, I don't know if the case is that strong to begin with, but now we have kind of like it's being bungled, or some of the background seems like it's being bungled. And, it's a big bonus to President Trump.
So, what do you think happens tomorrow? Give us, I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. Do you feel like all indications are Trump's, even with whatever, I mean, that Trump's going to get over 50%. And, well, let's start, before we get into that, how impactful is this move by Governor DeSantis dropping out and endorsing President Trump? Like, how much does that change the situation, and how much of a boost do you think that gives Trump?
Well, I think it gives him a solid boost, because it's just another person coming behind Trump. And based on the early polling, it looks like half of his supporters in New Hampshire went to Trump and half of them went to Haley. Now, it's not quite that. Maybe he had 6% and 2% went to Trump, 2% went to Haley. But it looks good for Trump. And I think personally, DeSantis may have been motivated to do this when he did it, because he understands that Governor Haley was kind of brought in as a replacement for him to try to go against Trump. And if you're Governor DeSantis, you might think, well, maybe I'm not really thrilled about that, so I'm going to try to help Trump to kind of undercut my replacement. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it could have happened. So I think it helps President Trump. I think you're seeing a rallying behind President Trump of a variety of politicians, including the South Carolina politicians, which we can talk about next segment. So I think it's looking good. As far as what I think is happening tomorrow, there are people that think Trump is going to get over 60%. For me personally, if he gets over 50%, that's it. I mean, he's pretty much set. I don't think any state will be better than New Hampshire for Governor Haley.
No.
So I think if Trump wins tomorrow, we're pretty much, in my opinion, we're done.
Well, you look at the money that this Governor DeSantis' campaign and the super PACs and the various supporters and super PACs of Governor DeSantis and now Governor / Ambassador Haley. It's been just massive in Iowa and New Hampshire. And like you said, I mean, if she cannot win in New Hampshire, you're not going to win in South Carolina. Where are you going to win? Like how do you keep that money train rolling, unless it's something motivated by something different, whether it's like a Rush Limbaugh Operation Chaos thing or who knows what. I just want to stay try to force myself on as a VP or all these other various strange strategies and rumors and stuff like that. And I just don't see it. It just doesn't seem viable. Anyway, we're going to talk about all this and more in the next segment. There's so much to talk about. I told you, there's a lot of show here, so just get ready. You're listening to John D. Villarreal Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM and also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and now X, formerly known as Twitter. So thanks so much. We'll stay tuned for the next segment. My name is John D. Villarreal. I'll see you soon.
all is. It's
Oh,
all
hold on,
y'all.
Paul.
And
I
so it's just-
apologize. I apologize. My mistake. Huge mistake. Apologize there. Let me reset everything right here. I had my mute button on there. Big problem there. Sorry about that. Sorry to the 1040 audience here and everyone else. Hey, John D. Villarreal here for the John D. Villarreal Radio Show. Back on the second break right here. I've got so much different new equipment now, and I've got Paul. I've got different things going on here. It is my mistake. I'm a professional, so I own it right there, and I appreciate the people at the station keeping it rolling right there. The bottom line is this. This is the second segment here on Newstalk 1040 AM all over the greater Tampa Bay area, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. We're talking about the New Hampshire primary. We're talking about, it was so funny, and I'll do it again. I'll tee it up again here. I'll run through it real quickly. Well, a lot of this stuff's just impromptu. I just roll, so I just never know. The show changes. Even if I try to redo it, it doesn't matter. It's still going to change. But let's do it right here. You had all these haters. You had everybody. They were so breathless. The polls, Trump was up for months and months and months and years. And hey, John, it doesn't matter. Nobody's voted yet. I don't care if Trump's up 1,000 points. It doesn't. Iowa, they take it seriously. They take it so seriously in the Iowa caucuses, and anything can happen. And the governor there endorsed Governor DeSantis and stuff like that. And do you see what Nikki Haley's doing in New Hampshire? Nikki Haley in New Hampshire. And then just like that, players, it was over. You had Trump winning almost 99 counties. It may be 98 or 99 counties in Iowa. Just steamrolling that, getting well over 50%. You had Vivek dropping out before, endorsing President Trump. You had, the governor there had the endorsement of DeSantis had almost no effect. I mean, gosh knows if it would have been worse. DeSantis almost went into third, but he got into second. The results of of Iowa were almost perfect for President Trump in terms of where he needs to be able to eliminate DeSantis and soon, Haley's probably going to be other. I would be surprised if she stays in the race a whole lot longer. She may stay in the race, but maybe not with a lot of votes or a lot of donors. Okay. Then, before New Hampshire, well, it's okay because we're going to New Hampshire. It's just a two-person race now and all this type of stuff. And it's Haley's got momentum because she got third. Because when you get third, you get momentum, right, Paul? I mean, when you get third, you get momentum, right? I mean, give me a break. That's unbelievable. I mean, stop. That is just so, how about, is that a joke? I mean, come on, stop. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And then it was like, oh yeah, and they all these different, no, Haley's gonna do this, and Haley can blah 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 do this, and then you had DeSantis drop out yesterday, and I mean that was just if you could do one thing to just ruin the Haley campaign. More than that, I can't think of it, because that was as big as it gets, Paul. That was unbelievable. That was a huge deal. What level of impact do you think that had on the Haley campaign?
I think it had a huge impact. And you said about Iowa and winning 99 counties. I believe Trump officially ended up winning 98 of 99 counties because there was some rush or surge at the end of the night to help Haley with a bunch of apparently maybe crossover votes. So she ended up winning one county. As I was saying before,
go ahead.
Trump held a huge rally in Manchester, New Hampshire this Saturday. Big, large, I would say maybe 7,000 people there, maybe more. And many South Carolina politicians were there at the rally. The reason why they were there was to show that Nikki Haley's home state stands behind Donald Trump. It does not stand behind Nikki Haley. And I think it's an overwhelming message. Everybody is lining up behind President Trump. The only people lining up behind Nikki Haley at this time, as you said, and as Donald Trump has pointed out himself, are big money donors like Reid Hoffman, who happens to be apparently a Democrat, other forces that are not, like Paul Ryan, people like this. The MAGA, the majority of the Republican movement.
And we love LinkedIn. We're live on LinkedIn right now. I'll just say that right now. Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, everything. Yeah, and love his podcast. I mean, Masters of Scale and does a great job and great product, stuff like that. And listen, and this is, sorry, Paul, I just want to say real quick. This is the thing. is you look at Elon, and some people are like, oh, they're mad at the All-In people, or they're mad at Elon, or they're mad at the PayPal, whatever, David Sachs, or there's just so many different people, Peter Thiel and Palantir and all this, or people like on our side, like, oh, Reid Hoffman, dude, Reid Hoffman's phenomenal. There's so many liberals or people that vote, left wing or whatever like that just build great companies or have great content, or we can have conversations. It used to be cool. We are in this time now. We'll talk about Sean Strickland, UFC, Dana White. There's so many more, Cat Williams. There's so many things we got to talk about. We're in this crazy time that is unlike any other time. And by the way, program note, we are not running any breaks right until the end. We're going to run all the way through. So you got us commercial. No, I don't know what commercial for you, but you maybe. I mean, we're running it straight. I guess so. You're running it straight through. I might do some live reads or something like that. We'll see. I'm communicating via text, so sometimes when I'm looking down. So this is going to be a fun, hot show. We're running strong now. Here's the deal. So I look at someone like Reid Hoffman, and I'm super impressed. We studied him in business school and everything like that, and it's done great things. It's cool. You can vote or support whoever you want to talk about. We'll probably talk about Zuckerbucks, with some of that. And of course, you're live on Facebook and stuff. And the point is that everyone should be able to do whatever they want to do and say what they want to say. And that's what Dana White said, his reporter that was trying to do their thing, with free speech. I'm kind of jumping a lot of things together here, but I think you understand what I'm talking about. I'm so tired of all the cancel culture, and not everybody, but a lot of people are tired of it. A lot of people are tired of it, and it's great to see people just shutting it down. I mean, you had someone screaming at or saying something about Novak Djokovic, right? And he went on to win it. He was someone saying something to him. Someone's and Sean Strickland was up there trying to talk, answering questions, press availability for the UFC championship fight, and a reporter was asking questions that didn't seem like a lot pertaining to fighting, and Strickland tried to move off that, and the reporter was just trying to, we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna get you on this one right here, and then put it to Dana White, and we'll talk about that. I want to set that up right. And so yeah, I mean, but to Paul's point, and which was my point earlier, it's like, so full respect to Reid and everybody else, and all that. But it's like, separate point is that yes, it's a little bit unusual when you have these disparate political beliefs that are backing the same candidate, but in a version of President Trump or a billionaire or millionaire or very successful class of that hang out together, because a lot of these folks hang out in very exclusive circles. There's just not, even today in 2024, there's not that many billionaires around. But Ken Langone and David Koch and Reid Hoffman are all billionaires. Okay, so there's just not that many, Paul. I mean, there's maybe, the Forbes had the 400 list. I have to see how far it goes down, but I mean, there's just not that many. I mean, is it 400? Is it 1,000? I don't know what it is, but it's just not a lot. So I apologize. I'll give the floor back to you, Paul. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I want to put that out there that we're all for everybody, and you should be able to have conversations, and everybody should be welcome and have reasonable discussions and all these types of things. And we want to get back to that. And I think people are tired of this Obama era cancel culture, and it had been there before, but I think it really ramped up with the Obama era and the community organizing and the cancel culture and the protests and the boycotts and all these types of things. Not to say that different things and nonviolent protests and all this stuff and whatever have a place, but when it's just, when it becomes a situation where I don't like you, I'm going to take your job away. I'm going to take your advertising away. I don't like what you're saying. You don't agree with me. I mean, and there was someone that had a comment. I can't remember who it was, a talk show host. Was it Jimmy Fallon or was it? No, I think it was. Oh man, I'm blanking. Out of Texas. I mean, even San Antonio. Jesse Kelly. I think this is the correct thing. It was like, in relation to tolerance and stuff like that. At first, it was like, and I'm going to get this a little bit wrong, but it was basically went through 4 steps. First it could have been O'Reilly. It could have been O'Reilly too. At first it was like, hey, we don't want to be discriminated against. Absolutely understand that. Hey, we want tolerance. Absolutely. And then, hey, you need to accept us. And then I don't want to mess this up because I'm already feeling like I'm going to get this wrong. But the point of it is that there's a difference between tolerance and, live and let live and everything like that. And like, everybody has to do this or everybody has to agree with me. Just think about it. Take it away from the normal stuff of, that is being talked about today. Just let's keep it simple on not simple. I mean, this is another very complicated issue, but let's talk about religion. We have freedom of religion. But I think this makes the better point, hopefully, and Paul will correct me if I'm wrong. And again, I may make a mistake. If I do, I apologize ahead of time. This is why you listen to the show, because we will take some risk, if you will. We'll have real conversations, and we'll do the best. We're doing it live here on Newstalk 1040. We do the best that we can. And even though I'm a super genius and Paul's, Ivy League grad, and he's a genius and everything, we will make mistakes, right? We're working without a net here. But we owe it to you to do our best. And that's what we try to do. And so you look at religion. We have freedom of religion in America. You can believe and worship however you like. And we have many different churches and synagogues and different and there's different rabbis that people follow, and there's different variations of Christianity. And a Baptist is a different kind of ministry than an Episcopalian, or and Catholicism is different than some. And you can go on down the lines. We have Hindus and Muslims and Native American. We have all kinds of different religions here. So it's one thing to say, hey, you know what? You have freedom of religion and you can worship as you want. You can have your church, and we can have 30 different churches in a small town or whatever it is. That's different than saying, hey, I believe in this and you need to believe in it too. And if you don't believe in my religion, we're going to cancel you. We're going to take your job. We're going to do you understand how that's a different vibe? So when you say that, oh, John, that's crazy. Well, look at so many other things. Look at how it applied to the pandemic. Look at how it's applied to words. Look at how it's applied to pronouns. Look at how it's applied to women's sports. Fill in the blank. Paul, what do you think? Am I totally off topic here, or do you understand what I'm saying? And why we're at a crazy point now that people are just saying, and why the politics of old are not working, because people are just done with all of it. Joe Rogan was speaking to this as well.
Yeah, I think you're totally on point here. And I think, just to summarize it, there's a difference between tolerance and coercion. And, that's not
Perfect
the same
word.
thing.
I love that. Go.
And here's the thing here's an example of this. We like law and order. Most people like law and order. Most people are happy that the Department of Justice and the legal system exist until it's weaponized, as you said, to go after possibly political opponents. It's great for there to be tactics for nonviolent resistance and to help change and everything, until they're used in a negative or potentially negative way to enact a coercive effort. We and I have talked about this, and I know people will know this name. Some of them will. Cass Sunstein and the concept of nudging, or BlackRock saying, we're going to kind of, Larry Fink, I believe is the CEO, saying, yeah, we're going to kind of get people to do this. And this is how we're going to get them to do this. That's not the way to do stuff, in my opinion. So yes, there is a difference between tolerance and coercion. And I think that's what you're talking about here. Whereas cancel culture would be, in my opinion, more in the coercion aspect or column.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but people are like, well, it's just Trump. Trump is so crazy, and his MAGA support. Hold on, I made my little my megaphone thing. It's just Trump. It's that he's so tough, and he's just so we can't. He's crazy, and his supporters are so bad. What you mean? 80 million Americans, and we're going to talk about that. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, had good comments on that, and we'll talk about that. We'll come back to that. Let me get back to this. And we just can't have, they're threatening to, this is my Joe Scarborough, they're threatening democracy. They're threatening, and we can't do our norms, our democratic norms and stuff like that. And it's these MAGA, it's just Trump. Okay, well, wait a minute. time out. It's just Trump. Well, then why don't you just check a look at what's going on over there in Germany and what's going on in France and what's going on in a bunch of other places? Because it seems like there's a lot of these farmers, dude, that are kind of out protesting with their tractors, bro, and doing a lot of stuff. And it seems like that lady in New Zealand that was like kind of like really like kind of very much front and center in the pandemic. Seems like that Prime Minister Jacinda, she's gone. It seems like the other one that was doing a little dance, we had a little dance going in Finland, she's gone too. And now people are talking about up north, in Canada, that maybe Justin Trudeau, he's not so bueno either. Okay, so there's a lot of different, and we had Argentina, and we had programming note, we may have somebody that is very experienced in Argentina, may have a connection to President Milei on the air on the John D. Villarreal show soon. So stay tuned for that. What I'm saying, Paul, and then we have Bolsonaro and stuff in Brazil. There's a lot of change out there. This is global right here, this populist movement, let alone what's going on in the UK and stuff. What do you make of this? This is not just America.
It's not just America. As you mentioned Bolsonaro, Milei, the president of Ecuador, I believe. I think Peter St. Onge, who I've talked about before, who is a PhD he's an economist for Heritage. He was talking today on his feed on X saying, look, the globalists at Davos are really getting concerned that not only is Trump going to win the upcoming election, but populism is going to start winning in the West. So they're starting to hedge their bets, which may have been what we were seeing with Jamie Dimon. And what he was saying, his point was, now they're starting to kind of try to lock in the gains that they have made before these populists might take control. Look, you can only move things so far. We've had in my opinion, like last 15 years or so here in the United States. I think people are getting weary of some of the things like cancel culture, some of the radical shifts in the overall culture. And I think there's a natural tendency to want to swing back. That's usually how politics works. The pendulum goes back and forth. Now, just coming back to something you said previously, you mentioned about Reid Hoffman and Elon and so on, David Sachs.
Can I say something? Let me just say something real quick, because a lot of people make that point. I'm not picking on you. You know, I'm a political science major. It doesn't matter. It's not just left, right, swinging back, pendulum. Yeah, sure, but I really believe that it's about. In Maya Angelou made the point, I can't, I'm going to get this quote a little bit wrong. I did what I did when I knew what I knew. Now that I know better, I do better. Stuff like that. I believe that like there is an arc of progress and stuff like that. And meaning that like, people learn more and they want to improve. There's a different thing. People are always going to want to be free. People are always going to want to have liberty. People are always going to want to take care of their family and do their own thing, whatever. You only need government to the extent that there's things that it does that you cannot do by yourself, whether it's create a safe environment. I mean, there's a whole raft of theory that I can break down, and I don't want to, I'm right in the middle of Paul's point. I don't want to step on that too much. But what I want to say is that, people don't naturally say, yeah, I need a king to rule over me or something like, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, why would you naturally want that? Right. And so it's not just a zero sum game, left going right, whatever like that. It's just that like, okay, we think these people champion these policies. We think they're going to work. It's a little bit too much when we're going to try this over here and whatnot. And I think that now that we have the communication revolution, the internet revolution, people can talk to each other. We don't have a monopoly of information propaganda by the three networks or one newspaper or one government, whatever it is, that people have learned more much faster. And now we're getting to the point where, look, a lot of people feel like, hey, we've been played here, or there's two sets of rules, or two justice, whatever. There's a whole kinds of different, fill in the blank. And people are saying like all this stuff that we've been promised, it hasn't worked. And socialism's failed everywhere it's been tried. It always sounds great. And so what I'm saying is it's almost like technological innovations that things are iterating faster. And so I think that like political sort of evolution and technological evolution are somewhat related. Maybe that's why the tech bros are kind of in. I'm not Paul, you know how my mind works. I'm kind of making sense of this. I don't know if I'm fully laying this all out, but you understand where I'm trying to go with this?
Yeah, I do. And let me just coming back to what I was saying, just to kind of circle back to your point about the
Go
tech
ahead.
bros and Elon and so on and so forth. It's great that they want to be involved. It's great that they're talking everything. But you and I both know from having been around politics for a long time is there's a tendency from people in the donor class and the wealthy people to kind of feel like what John and I will describe this as a push button concept, which means if they just push the button and put a bunch of money in and whatever, everything's going to go the way they want to do it and their candidate's going to thrive and all this. And that's not how it works. We saw that with Sachs and Elon, which is first they backed DeSantis, then late they backed Vivek, and of course, neither one of them is going to be the nominee. You have to be able to read the people. You have to be able to understand where the people are at. So it doesn't matter where you necessarily a donor are at, it's where the people are at. And so I think that's part of what John's critique is of some of these donor class people, is that they have their own agenda perhaps, and that might not be the agenda of the larger electorate.
Well, and the reason why that is a lot in large part is two reasons. And if you say this with athletes and different things, hey, I've been successful. I've been super successful in my law career, athletic career, building this tech company. I was right about everything. I'm a winner and stuff like that. So I'm going to pick a winner. My success here means that whoever I like for political stuff, that's got to be the right choice. So that there's that kind of bias, if you will, on that. I can't remember the bias I don't know if it's I don't think it's confirmation bias, but anyway, there's like all these different things. That's number one. But number two is what you said there with the push button thing, and that's also very important. And we see this more in the technology space. A lot of success. And military success too, right? I mean, so it could also be with people from a military background. A lot of success in military and definitely in technology and business, but particularly in technology, is having a technological edge, a superiority, having an almost not legally, and again, I'm not licensed in practicing in Florida or anything like that. I'm a talk show host here, not blah blah blah. Is having an almost unfair advantage, if you will. Like, hey, I'm Google, my search engine works the best. Or, hey, Apple is so much easier to use than blank. I don't know that that's the case. Some of this I'm just making up. You understand what I'm saying? Or I have the best tennis shoe. Or I have the best electric car, Tesla, whatever it is. I have this massive advantage and I can just use that and push a button. That creates leverage to have this top-down solution. That's very, very different than a political campaign, whereas exactly as Paul says, you need to persuade people. You need to persuade the majority of the people. And it doesn't matter. I can have $1 billion and I can have $1. This person can have $1 and we both have the same votes. Now, maybe I can use some of my $1 billion to try to influence the people with less money, but they still have those votes. That my vote is no more valuable than their votes. So the difference between having this advantage and leverage that you can then impose push button top down is different than persuading people that a majority of whom to agree with me, particularly when we have a technological revolution and a media revolution where people are much more educated and much smarter and have seen the radicals in operation for the last 4, 8, 12 years and are saying, I don't want any of that. And they've seen it globally. Right. And then they get together, Davos or different places and things have been traveled globally. So that's what I'm talking about. The iterations become faster. So I think the change of pace on both the technology and the political side are both faster. Now, where's dangerous, in my opinion, potentially, is the more technology as it evolves becomes more powerful. So whether you're looking at AI, genetic engineering, weapon systems, transportation systems, all these types of things, robotics, etc. It can be tremendously, the power level continues to go up dramatically, and that can be either used for good or used for ill, or it can, and all those types of things. I think it's similarly on the political side. It's like, hey, well, we'll just try this. I mean, it like you think about it. Yes, there was a pandemic, but just think about how fast if you will, the constitutional norms, the society norms just went out the window. Now, maybe say, John, well, there's a good reason for that because of all it. But I mean, people's constitutional rights potentially were being overridden by bureaucrats, unelected. Did that not concern anybody? I mean, I don't want to relitigate all this. I mean, Paul, again, I don't want to say too much because I to make sure I'm recalling everything correctly. But do you get what I'm saying, Paul? Go ahead.
I do get what you're saying, yes, and I think you make good points, which is things are changing extremely fast. And as you said, I mean, that kind of causes its own kind of upheaval. But as you mentioned, you can only go so far. Money will only buy you so many votes. It will only persuade people so much. That's one of the things I think we're seeing with President Biden right now. He's going to have the money advantage. He's going to have the cultural advantage with people like Jimmy Kimmel and so on propping him up. But if we look at the most recent Harvard-Harris poll that came out today, Trump is up 53-47 over Biden head-to-head. And that's with Trump taking incoming flack during this primary and Biden being unopposed. So at some point in time, the rubber hits the road and you simply can't sell the product anymore. And I think we're starting to see that with President Biden, and it is making Democrats nervous. And I understand that. But look, I mean, that's what happens. If the administration is not getting the job done at some point, everybody knows that, and there isn't a lot you can do to try to pretend otherwise.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say right there is that, people are so much smarter now. And people understand, like, this isn't working. My life isn't great. And that's why, like, we were talking about this, and I'll give you the credit. We talked about this off the air with the Zuckerbucks and everything like that, where it was basically like, look, you can try to get out the vote all you want, and that's fantastic, and that's and whatever. But then there's a question of, and Elon Musk made this point to who was it? Was it Rogan? No, it was Tucker Carlson. Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson. He's like, that basically like, okay, yeah, they're trying to get out the vote in Democratic areas, something like that. I mean, that was my paraphrase of I'm not alleging anything. But as you said, and we were talking in the car and stuff like that, like, okay, well, what happens when you can get out the vote, but when all of a sudden urban, minority, traditional and different Democratic voting blocks are starting to break towards Trump, then what good is that for you? Because this is what I'm trying to talk to you about. People know what's going on in their own lives, and it's the economy stupid. You can say Bidenomics. People just don't know how great it is, and they try to set up again. Becky Quick and the other reporter there for blanking for a second. Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew Ross Sorkin. We're trying to, talking to Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase CEO, and he's like, it's, I think there's real problems with the economy, and I think we shouldn't be slamming on Trump voters and stuff like that. And I think they're Americans too, and it's like half the country, and it doesn't make sense. He was just talking to people like, enough of this craziness. This is the thing. Like, I mean, think about it. Like, I mean, I've got family over there in Israel and stuff like that, and I talk to them, and I don't want to get too much into that, but I mean, it's just common sense. A war is very destructive. Like, I mean, you can't have a, you look at what's happening in Ukraine, and it's an absolute tragedy. You can say it's, whether, however justified or anything like that. I mean, people are dying, and it's a tragedy, and a lot of people are dying. Excuse me. Apologize. So that's a really problematic thing. Similarly, what's going on in Israel is costing a lot of money, and it's very disruptive, and all these, and in Gaza, and it's people are dying there too, and it's a tragedy, right? Absolutely. And I'm not talking specifically about anything other than just in a generic. We've talked about those different issues at different times. I'm not focusing on that in this show. They are actually absolutely crises and absolutely very, very important. And the point of it is that who wins in war. Now maybe you may be forced into that in national security, national defense, everything like that. And sometimes you're put in that position, but who wins in that? How do you, it's not like you don't gain people and make money on that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, not typically, right? And so similarly, like if you have a political civil war or a economic civil war, or, half the country, and again, I said it before, 50% solution is not 100% solution. If you say, I'm not going to sell to half the country, I'm not going to hire half the country, I'm not going to market to half the country, it just doesn't make any sense. And people are just done with this because it's not just that they're tired of it politically, it's that it's costing them money. People are tired of like losing jobs, families, houses, all kinds of stuff, fill in the blank, over your political crusade. Because we've been having, the government to some degree being influenced by or run by, some, more strident academics. And, what works in the faculty lounge or what sounds cool on a Harvard or Berkeley or Stanford campus doesn't seem to work so great in practice. Paul, do you agree with that?
I do. And you, as somebody who's a double graduate from Berkeley, you and I both know we would go and hang around Berkeley like in the late 80s, early 90s. And the most outlandish stuff that was being said there on Sproul Plaza now is like normal culture. I mean, it's really nuts, in my opinion. Coming back to what you said about turning out the votes, and even if you do Zuck bucks, one of the things that's showing up in polls, and this is very rare, is that the more voters the larger the voter turnout looks like it's going to be, the more it looks like it's going to favor President Trump.
Makes total sense. I'll explain that in a second.
Right. And that usually is not the case for Republicans, but that's what's happening now. So if you increase that turnout, that isn't necessarily going to help Joe Biden. Yeah. So, that's what we're looking at right there. I do know what you're saying. I do think that Jamie Dimon really hit on it true. And that's something that's we have to get away from this. We have to stop taking, like you said, the 50% solution. It reminds me of how California has like the list of, I don't know how many states that their officials aren't allowed to go to because they don't like the policies of those states.
That's
just
a great
doesn't
point.
make
Go ahead.
any sense. Yeah, and it goes against this whole system of federalism. That's just not the way things are supposed to work in this country, in my opinion.
Absolutely right. And here's why, when you turn out more in this situation where it's basically like ultra elites or wannabe elites versus, the mass market, if you will. There's a lot of people that just don't care about politics. They're working. They don't have time. They don't care. They tune out if they think politicians are liars, whatever like that. When the populist candidate, it's kind of commonsensical, right? When the populist candidate is on the ticket, the more votes you turn out, almost by definition, they're going to turn towards that candidate. Right, the elites or the super elites or the whatever, they're going to show up to vote. Yeah, they're going to show up to vote. You know what I'm talking about? And it used to be that people would talk about low information voters and stuff like that. And yeah, you still have some of that, but you have a lot less of that. A perfect example of how things evolve and how things change. When Paul and I grew up, there was a lot of people who thought professional wrestling was real. Now, almost nobody thinks professional wrestling is real. Still watch it. They'll still go to a match. It's probably more popular than ever. But people understand it's a gimmick. People understand it's a work. It's not a shoot. It's a work. People understand that. And so even the people that are casual observers or don't care about politics are more informed now than ever. And that's dangerous to people that are maybe trying to sucker you. The con person can't let you in on the con. Once you know the magic trick, it's no longer magic. And, that's what we're talking about here. And so the problem of it is it goes back to the fundamentals. When you get away from things that fundamentally work, when you get away from things that are fundamentally fair, then it's just harder to maintain the ruse. How many people want to be involved in a pyramid scheme if they know it's a pyramid scheme? You know what I'm saying? Like we can go on and on and on with the analogies here. And that's the problem. And that's the problem that I have with the cancel culture and stuff like that. And people that want to crack down on free speech or that this violates a speech code or and all that type of stuff. It's like, dude, if you're right about something, what do you? I mean, if I believe that 2 + 2 = 4, I'm not threatened by you saying that 2 + 2 = 3. You prove it to me, show it to me. If you can show me where I'm wrong, then we learn something. We have to have a debate, discussion. We can't have this. And the funny thing is my alma maters, Berkeley and Johns Hopkins, much more so Berkeley than Johns Hopkins, are known for being pretty liberal, especially Berkeley. Berkeley, like the most liberal place out there, certainly right in the running for the ultimate championship, if you will. But both of those schools, I think, have acquitted themselves really well. And I'm not saying that just because I'm biased. It's like I wasn't sure, what was going to come out of Berkeley and stuff. And I had seen some stuff from Hopkins. Actually, when I went to listen, I expect academia to be liberal. I expect that, you know what I mean? Like, and I think most conservatives do and stuff like that. But I felt, for the most part, by and large, for the most part, I was treated very fairly, even great at Hopkins and stuff like that. I mean, I have a strong personality, not everyone's going to like me and love me and stuff like that. And again, I'm not someone that's going to kiss up to people. I don't do that type of stuff. So I don't expect to be the teacher's pet or whatever you want to call it. Right. But I felt like at Hopkins, and then again, I don't get distracted. I have a better point to make here. What was great about that place is it's so research steeped that it's really research and evidence based. And so I think like 1/5, 1/4 of all medical funding, research funding goes through Johns Hopkins. I mean, it's an insane number. And even though, like, yes, it's in Baltimore, and yes, it's more left wing, and yes, there's this and that, and whatever like that, very much favors that, and just first rate education. And whether it was Dean Ferrari and now Dean Triantis, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, Dean. I don't have it in front of me. I do apologize if I'm getting that a little bit off. I think did a great job, and of course in the advanced academic programs, phenomenal job. And now the new spot there where the old museum is in Washington, I think they're doing a phenomenal job. And so, along with the medical school, the Bloomberg School, and the undergrad, and the whole deal. But what I like, and I'll get back to Berkeley in a second, what I like about Hopkins is we had this DEI officer, this VP or something like that, I may be getting the title wrong, who came out with a statement that was shocking and abhorrent, and I just don't understand where we're at in 2024. And again, like the Skokie trial and all these different different famous cases and stuff. I'll defend anyone's right to say whatever they want, but I'll also say what I think's right and what I think's wrong. And I like the fact that, unlike what we saw from Penn, Harvard, MIT, and some of these other schools, there was an immediate rebuke from the leadership of Johns Hopkins, because they're not about that. They're about medicine. They're about research. They're about business. They're about engineering. They're about so many different things that they do great. Okay, and it's a phenomenal institution. That actually was asked to be an Ivy League school. By the way, it was asked to be an Ivy League school back in the day, and they turned it down. Now Berkeley, let's talk about that again. We've seen what happened, and I'm not trying to listen. All these are phenomenal schools, and they'll figure it out. They'll right the ship. I'm not trying to our team versus their team and stuff like that. I do think the one that's gone the furthest astray. There's some close ones there, so I mean, Paul may disagree with me, but I think the one that's gone the furthest astray, for a variety of reasons, is Harvard, because I think for a long time that was, in a lot of globally, was maybe the ultimate brand. It depends on what this field is, and some would disagree with that. Not in medicine. Hopkins, I think, is the ultimate brand in medicine. I think Hopkins can stand with anybody. The only other two that have any kind of claim to that level of dominance would be Harvard and Stanford, and a more narrow windows of medicine. I mean, Hopkins is just anything medical related. Anyway, I don't want to get into this, alumni, rah boosting type of stuff, but I think in my opinion, I think that's I believe that. But Harvard was just a pure school, one name that travels the globe more than any other name probably had that name. So you could see where people would want to capture that, if you will. I'm not alleging anything, but I'll put that aside for a second because I don't want to I'll come back to that, and Paul will have his comments on that. But here's the point I'm trying to make. Yale, Stanford, their law schools, both super elite law schools and stuff like that. And I may have been able to, I may have had a chance to go to, I didn't apply to Yale, may have had a chance to go to Stanford. I was waitlisted on Stanford, but between Stanford and Berkeley, I had to choose one. I had to say yes or no to Berkeley before I could see what was going to happen with Stanford. And I was perfectly happy with Berkeley. Sometimes I think, well, coulda, shoulda, woulda, whatever. But in the end, my life, I got the best job. Again, I'm getting distracted with my own story. But I have a lot of the reason I say that is I have a lot of respect and understanding about people that have graduated from Stanford Law School and stuff like that. And what they did was shutting down with the protests with the judges. You see some of these students. You had law firms straight up saying, we're not hiring people from Yale anymore, from Yale Law School. We're not hiring people from Stanford Law School. And yet you see people like J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy that have come out of Yale Law School just super impressive. I'm sure the same with Stanford. I know some people that are some of my contacts on LinkedIn, dual degrees, Stanford GSB, Graduate School of Business, MBA, and Stanford Law School. I haven't met, I love Berkeley. I do, go Bears. Absolutely. But I haven't met really anyone rolling out of Stanford GSB or Stanford Law that isn't impressive. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't met them. And I think that those two schools have done tremendous damage to their brand. But when you brands, at least temporarily, but when you see the damage that Harvard has done with Professor Gay, and we've all seen that, we've talked about in this show and stuff like that, who resigned and everything. And of course, Penn has been caught up in that. Paul's alma mater, Cornell, and he'll have his comments here in a second. MIT is still, swirling that mix. But what I really loved about that, and I was waiting for, was something going to happen to Berkeley? I was waiting for that. And Dean Chemerinsky, very liberal, by the way, shock, in my opinion, no offense, Dean. But man, he's a constitutional scholar. And he stepped up, and he did something else before. He stepped up, and Professor Yu, my old professor over there, and he was our advisor for the Federal Society. I was vice president of Federal Society at Berkeley Law School. Dean Chemerinsky stepped up and defended Trump's right to speak with the gag order. I think he might have also said something about the 14th Amendment stuff, whatever. And he stepped up, and he took heat for that. And I'm like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. Because we have to adhere to the same. We have one constitution and one law for everyone. All these people railing against, democracy, whatever. It feels like some of these people are willing to do whatever it takes. I'm not alleging anything. I'm just saying, within the confines of legal and, political stuff and rhetoric and whatever, to just get Trump. And that, throw the rules out, if you will, or the democratic norms, because it's Trump. And to see both Hopkins and Berkeley leadership stand up and say, yeah, we're enough of this. It's not everything out the window to get Trump. We're not accepting these extreme, statements from a DEI officer, in my opinion, stuff like that. So I was very proud of that, Paul. A long setup, a long story, but I think an important story with a lot of these things in the news and kind of where we are and how to get off this off ramp. We need leaders to step up and say, we're done with this. And I think we're seeing it with Cat Williams in different forms. Culture, Cat Williams, Club Shay Shay, Ron DeSantis, Trump, Sean Strickland, UFC, President Dana White. We're seeing a lot of things. Does that make sense?
It does. And just coming back to Harvard, I agree with you completely. I think Harvard's done incredible damage to the brand. Lawrence Summers, who is a former president of Harvard, basically, I think came out and said today that he's lost confidence in Harvard. I mean, obviously, in my opinion, he's not the only one, given the recent events. And I know Bill Ackman, who's the billionaire investor he's looking to try to see if he can help kind of make some changes to, I believe, the board of the corporation, which is like a board of trustees there. So there are people who are tied to Harvard who are working to make changes there because they are concerned with how things have changed there. You mentioned me and Cornell. Cornell is I was totally embarrassed with one of the professors there after the 10/7 incident in Israel. I can't remember the person's name. He's a history professor, and you can go look it up. But it was just like, what is happening here? So yeah, things have. I think a number of different higher educational institutions have had struggles. It is good to see that the Berkeley Law School, and Johns Hopkins is doing maybe kind of leading the pack in proper responses. I'm with you. I think that we need to protect free speech. We need to kind of have people being able to come out and talk about ideas. One of the things, again, and I've mentioned this before, I'm a former liberal. And one of the things that made me leave the Democrat Party was because I felt like people were being kind of smeared and put into little groups or pockets, whereas the people who were putting them in those groups, in my opinion, didn't want to talk about ideas. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to debate. They simply wanted to say, you are this, you're out, and that's it. You can't have a republic. You can't have a democracy like that.
Forced conformity.
You can't talk about ideas. Yeah, exactly. You cannot have a realistic, open society like that. And that's what I saw that was happening on the left, and I just didn't want any part of it.
So where do you think this goes? And you've got a bad economy, you've got inflation, you've got this kind of cultural things going on, educational stuff going on. And meanwhile, you've got a lot of people that are immigrants and stuff that have come here and they work hard. Their kids work hard. Maybe they've got a 4.0. Maybe they're captain of their sports team, stuff like that. They're applying to Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Berkeley, Johns Hopkins, Cornell, and they're trying to get in these schools and they can't get in. There's those kinds of stories too. There's a lot of parents that are worried about what are they teaching my kids. It was Glenn Beck, I thought, and I'm not, I respect Glenn Beck's broadcast ability, but I'm not the biggest Glenn Beck fan, and we know about that and stuff like that. I just, but I mean, that doesn't mean he doesn't have some points here and there. But he was on Patrick Bet-David's show and was talking about Disney and how Disney, he'd said that Bob Iger's the problem there, and how they were going over the stock prices, and how Disney and Marvel and they talked about the whole into the Panderverse thing with South Park, that parody, and how Disney's just ruined that brand, and the brand was you can trust us with your kids, and how hard that was to build that brand, and how that's been really damaged, and he's like, well, and they're like, Patrick, well, what do you do if you do this or that? Or one of the other guests were asking, or hosts were asking, like, what do you do to fix that? Do you remove this person or that person, or is it Iger? It's like, no, you have to shut it all down. It's like, you don't understand. Like, the vast majority of the people over there, this is Beck's, words, not mine, believe in this stuff. Like, they're all on board. Like, and that's kind of the problem, is it almost becomes Paul, and we talked about Harvard and these Ivies and their different institutions, and this ideological potential quasi litmus test, possibly, right, to get into any of these places. You have these different question marks. So, when you're applying, what are your pronouns, and what have you done, and what do you, it's almost like, I've never seen it, but I mean, it almost feels like, well, which way do you vote, or who do you back, or whatever, and it just becomes crazy, and we can't be in that situation. That doesn't foster the best and the brightest. Right? That doesn't foster free speech. That doesn't foster a free society, land of the free, home of the brave. That's not what that's about. It can't be about that. Whomever the candidate is, it doesn't matter. It could be Rumpelstiltskin. It could be Taylor Swift. It could be whatever. And oh, shock. Now we're having people on the left saying, oh, Biden and Taylor Swift and Swifties. And oh, it's so weird. I never saw that coming. We never talked about that. We never said that somehow all this Taylor Swift super pump up, that it was never, ever going to turn political. Huh, that's weird. We never said that, did we? We never said that. Oh, me. Are you kidding me? We talked about that. So, look, I think that there's tremendous damage to these brands. I think that we have to get back to education. Has to be about education. I mean, it has to get back to fundamentals. We have to get back to work again. We have to start talking to each other. We have to lower the volume. It just, you can't do, I mean, it's the old Margaret Thatcher saying, repurposed in a different way. Socialism's great until you run out of other people's money, which means that, all this ideological stuff, all this like it's the same thing. You can't have this political civil war. That doesn't get you the best economy. That doesn't get you the best stuff. It just becomes destructive. Okay. It's just, and that's the problem with these, Marxists or far left ideology. It's just about power and control and critical and tearing things down, but it's not about building things up. And Milei, and I'll tee you up for this. President Milei who's, I believe an economist or historian or something like that from Argentina, had a great discussion in defense of capitalism and why it's so great and how it's helped so many people out. And I just think that people want to be able to do their own thing. That's the beauty of the world. That's the beauty of diversity. That's the beauty of different systems. Like, people want to do their own thing and want to be successful and want to be left alone. Talk to me about what Milei said at the WEF. We talked about it last week, but I think it's helpful here as well.
One really quick thing about Disney. You mentioned them and kind of their brand and the struggles they've had with their brand. We know that one of their investors, Nelson Peltz, is working right now to try to get more representation on their board to help them out. And of course, as you might imagine, he's being resisted by the board. So that's another thing like Harvard, where people are trying to kind of effect change about what's happening. Coming to President Milei, he is an economist. He's a very intelligent man. And the speech that he gave at Davos was extremely well received by many. You and I both loved it. And we talked about this on another show that we did, kind of like a LinkedIn show or, just another program that's not the radio show. Basically, what he said was, look, if you look at the history of the world since about 1800 to now, capitalism has taken the world from 5% not in poverty in 1800 to only 5% in poverty right now in 2023. And he talked about the Industrial Revolution, and that went hand in hand with capitalism. And people got, machines were able to help out people more. They freed people up so they could do more things. There was more wealth and goods to spread around to everybody, and it worked. Whereas he said, compared that with socialism, where he said, everywhere socialism goes, poverty follows. And he talked about how that occurred in Argentina. Apparently between 1865 and, 1900 or so, Argentina was capitalist, and it did incredibly well. It was thriving. It was doing great. But then soon after that, they came under more of a collectivist or socialist regime, and they plummeted down to like 150th in like GDP in the world, which is a very low number. And now they're trying to kind of come back out of that. It's hard to argue those facts. Sure, capitalism isn't perfect, but in my opinion, it's a lot better than socialism is. And so that's what he was talking about. I thought he gave a very good performance. And people who weren't aware of him before are now aware of him. And I thought, again, he's a good representation for that message.
No, it's a great summary. Absolutely. And there's no doubt about it. So where do we think, let's get back to, that's a lot of the theoretical and the backstop there that I think really helps of where we kind of are right now and what the situation is, which informs the politics, right? And again, this is why we're not, listen, obviously if you're a billionaire, like I said, I'm nobody. I just know a lot of things and I know a lot of people, right? And I think I've over the weeks, I think I've proven that. And And we're going to prove it a lot more. We actually might have someone that's pretty close to President Malay or has been in contact at some point on the show here soon. We're hopefully it could be even Wednesday. That would be on the radio, but if hopefully we'll be able to repurpose that for the radio show. And it's like this. It's like, if you made $1 billion, you're probably really smart and have done some smart things or got whatever that it is, right? But there's been some level of success there, obviously. But there's also a level of insulation from the current pain. If gas prices go up 20%, it doesn't really affect you as much. So in other words, it doesn't mean that you're not trying to be a good person, but you're just out of touch. If I can, squat 1,000 pounds and bench press 600 pounds, I don't understand people that can't, lift a piece of luggage to get on to put in the trunk of their car. But there are people that can't do that, right? There's people that need help putting their groceries away or whatever, or crossing the street or whatever that it is, and fill in the blank. It's like that with all kinds of different things. So you just get removed from the struggles of the average person, because by definition you're not average. You're not even close to average, and that's just how it is. So it's no different than a superstar movie superstar, something like that, in terms of dating or something or whatever that it is. So I think you have to understand where you're at, and you have to stay in touch with that if you're going to be able to analyze politics and predict some things and see where we're going. Where do you think it is right now with this Republican primary? What do you expect to happen tomorrow, Paul? Are we looking at a 60-40 result, a 55-30? I mean, there's probably going to be, it's probably not going to be 100% with those two. It's probably going to be some other votes, some other places, but mostly it's going to be, going to go to President Trump and Ambassador Haley. Do you think that we're looking at 50-30, like what do you think that mix is going to look like?
I think there's a very good chance that President Trump is going to get 55% of the vote or greater. And that would be an enormous performance, particularly given that you are able to cross over there, or sometime before the election, you're able to cross over. And there seem to be a number of people doing that. There seems to be an effort to try to do that. Let me put it that way. And also because New Hampshire is more of a moderate independent type of state. It's not a heavily conservative state, which would favor Trump more, like in Iowa, like a South Carolina. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Look, let's be honest here. Trump got 51% in Iowa, and that was overwhelming.
Correct.
Yeah, of course, more people were in. But if he gets 55% in New Hampshire, I mean, that's even a bigger number. So what do you really want here? I think that Trump is in very good position for tomorrow. It's going to be, everybody's going to be watching. We can't wait to see what the returns look like. I don't know what's going to happen or what could happen that can shape this race towards Nikki Haley at this point. It would have to be a huge miss in the modeling in order, in my opinion, for Nikki Haley to have a chance in this race. That's what we're looking at. And I think if and when President Trump wins tomorrow, then I think you're going to see an immediate pivot towards it's time for Nikki Haley to get out. It's time for the GOP to unify, and so on and so forth. And I think if I'm Nikki Haley, I don't know why I would stay in. If Trump gets 55% of the vote, why would you stay in? You're only going to do worse in other states. And if you stay in long enough to go in South Carolina in that election, which at the end of February, there's a very good chance you're going to get embarrassed in that state. And why would you do that? So I think that's what we're looking at right now. I think that, look, one of the things we're starting to see now, and you and I both know this was not happening before, Fox is starting to talk to Trump more. They talked to him this morning on Fox and Friends. He was on Hannity last week. Guess what that means, in my opinion? It means they see the writing on the wall. And it's time to make amends with President Trump, even though he might not be the first choice of Fox News for who they want to represent the Republican Party. That's what I think is happening. I think it's people see what's going on, and it's kind of time to make peace with it.
I think a lot of people are seeing the writing on the wall. I do agree with that. I mean, when you had Vivek drop out and endorse. Senator Tim Scott that was running. He dropped out and endorsed. You also saw Governor DeSantis drop out and endorse, and you're seeing a lot of congressional leaders, and you've seen Representative Byron Donalds, endorsing. You're seeing, a lot, Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham. You're seeing a lot of people lining up and endorsing President Trump. Of course, Congressman Greg Steube, Congressman Matt Gaetz. There's a lot of people that are stepping up and endorsing, President Trump and lining up and asking for this. Representative Stefanik. You haven't heard anything. Maybe I haven't heard it. I don't know. But obviously, Governor Haley, Ambassador Haley is still running against President Trump. But I haven't heard anything from Mayor Suarez that was in this race. I haven't heard anything from Chris Christie, Governor Christie that was in this race in terms of that. You did have Governor Doug Burgum, who has endorsed President Trump, so that was also good. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to be Trump. And as you said, Jamie Dimon, Wall Street is starting to hedge their bets and stuff like that. But I think it's come so fast that people weren't ready for it, and they thought that they were just going to continue this vilification, if you will, of Trump and Trump voters. And Dimon's like, we're not doing that. We're not. This isn't good for business. This isn't good. And I think at some point people realize that this just isn't working. Go ahead.
Just two quick things. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine.
Number one, Chris Christie, apparently there is an effort being made right now, or an outreach to him from the No Labels group to possibly run him at the top of ticket, right? Because, of course, then the thinking would be to try to cut into Trump's numbers in the different states. The second thing is, you were just saying about, going back to Chris Christie, like I said, that's what I hear about with him. That's what has been happening out there, and that's what they're talking about. We'll see if he agrees with that or not. Now, before, there was the concept that Joe Manchin could lead that ticket. But now, maybe it's because RFK isn't doing that great. Now we're hearing about Chris Christie might be the top of that ticket. And I don't know if he'll pick that or not. And if he does, how interesting is that?
Yeah, they keep trying to find the non-Trump, and it's just not working. And I don't see it working. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, this is what I'm trying. The same thing, these rumors of someone other than Biden. We are in late January. What do you like? Voting's already going on, is underway. Like, with Iowa and New Hampshire's tomorrow. How are you going to how's that going to all happen? You know what I'm saying? And Biden there's no indication from Biden that he's going anywhere, or and you hear what Dr. Jill's saying, stuff like that. Either First Lady. And Trump, Trump is ready, is steamrolling, stuff like that. So a lot of people are saying, and Beck said this on Patrick Beck Davids, and I agree, because Beck David was like, oh, you need someone different, and listen, even Trump was saying, like, look, nobody cares about the presidential pick. In other words, it used to be you pick them from an important state or a different state, or they would bring in a constituency, they would help you win, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think that's the case here. I think that if anything, because of what's happened with Russia collusion hoax and all these different things that have happened in a nonstop sort of, for lack of a better word, political attacks against Trump, and some would say dirty tricks even, or whatever. You want someone that is going to be in the same mold, if not, more so to deter some of that, or also deter some talk about a lame duck or whatnot. So a lot of people are saying someone like Vivek, or who knows? There's different names that are being floated out there. What do you hear as most likely? I've heard at least Stefanik. I've heard Vivek. I heard that Trump's calling a lot of people. Glenn Beck said he called him, and he's calling a bunch of other people too. And I guess a lot of people are saying Vivek. But there's other names. I've heard Tim Scott. I've heard, you're saying Dr. Ben Carson. What names are you hearing out there, Paul? And who do you think, you've mentioned Ben Carson, well, who are some of the names you think would be good?
The names that I've heard in the last week are Ben Carson, Governor Kristi Noem, South Dakota, J.D. Vance, Elise Stefanik, and there's somebody I'm forgetting. Those are the top 4 that I have heard. Look, all of them could be good. All of them could be good. I mean, any one of those people can be good. They each are bringing different things to the table. They each can be, I think, good spokespeople. We know that Ben Carson has already served in his cabinet. Ben Carson knows the swamp. Ben Carson has impeccable character, in my opinion. Elise Stefanik has shown in recent months that she is very good at handling herself. Excellent. Kristi Noem, I think, has done a terrific job in South Dakota. J.D. Vance is a top-level guy, as you said. He is a Yale lawyer, Yale Law, and one of the things that's great with J.D. Vance, and I know it would go over well here in Pennsylvania, is he's from Appalachia. So he's kind of like us in the sense that he's been to the Ivy League, but he's also from Appalachia. He's from the farmland. He's from the rural area, and people can relate to that. And he hasn't lost that part of him. So each of those 4 could bring a different set of skills to help President Trump. I honestly, right now, don't know who it's going to be. I thought I knew because what you're getting now is you're getting different groups leaking different things.
Right.
And so that could very well be kind of trial balloon stuff. This could be different
positioning. It could be all
groups.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, it could be. We want this person, so we're going to leak this name. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that President Trump feels pretty good about it. And he feels like, I mean, according to his own words, he doesn't think it's going to make a big difference. Now, and there are people saying out there saying, oh, you can't, you couldn't pick like Byron Donalds because they're from the same state. Just to remind people, in the year 2000, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney were both from Texas, but Cheney owned land in Wyoming. So what did he do? He registered to vote in Wyoming, and he was, quote unquote, from Wyoming.
Right.
Of course, we know President Trump owns land all over the U.S., frequently in New Jersey at his Bedminster place. So I would imagine he could easily switch his registration to there, switch his official residence to there if he wanted to bring on somebody like Byron Donalds.
Yeah, I mean, I like Byron Donalds. I like Vivek a lot. I like all these people a lot. I mean, Byron Donalds a lot. I like Vivek a lot. I like J.D. Vance a lot. I think Vivek and J.D. Vance would be, really, really both of them very, very strong. I mean, J.D. Vance stepped up really awesome with the crash there in Ohio and stuff. And he's had so many different comments and stuff. And he's written the book, Hillbilly Elegy, and has just talked about these issues and been a very big champion for President Trump. And I think definitely in Ohio and has done a great job with that. Going out to the creek and doing the videos. And so, just really, really, really great. I think that Representative Stefanik, look, I don't think she's comes from a big conservative area over there or whatnot, but I think she's definitely can handle herself very well, very sharp, has been very effective. That's intriguing. There may be some affinity there just because of the geographic proximity and stuff like that, or she probably grew up with President Trump, and it being a larger than life figure there in New York and everything like that. I think that.
Let me just say something on that, just so you know. Stefanik is from, I believe, right around the Albany area.
Oh, she's up there. Oh, okay. I somehow thought she was Long Island. I got that wrong. My apologies.
So that's Zeldin. That's Zeldin, who is
Zeldin.
Also possibly on the list.
That's interesting.
He is from Long Island.
Okay.
So Stefanik is kind of like her. Yeah, that's cool. Stefanik's district, I believe, I want to say is like from kind of like the Canada border, Adirondacks down to Albany. So that is her. That's where she's at. Interesting.
Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected. So I apologize there, Representative Stefanik. And listen, every time she opens her mouth, a lot of times it's impressive. I'm not backing every single thing she says, but things I've seen, like she's done a really good job. Governor Noem, I don't know. I've got mixed feelings there. In some ways, obviously she's done some good things. Hats off to her. I think she's, strong, capable, everything like that. I've got some question marks. I wasn't super happy with how she handled some certain issues there. Can
I say something about her?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I really don't want to miss.
No,
There's something, and I apologize for interrupting. There's something that has been brought up about her. I'm not going to say what it is. Some people know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I want to tell you this. Pastor Daryl Scott, who I follow on X, was very close to President Trump, was an advisor for President Trump right now, and
Go
who
ahead.
worked with him when was it said, no, that is totally false. That is not true. So throw that out. I just wanted to say that.
And I'm not talking about it. I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm not talking about that. So I would say that for me, it's just like, look, no different than Governor Haley, and some people say Governor DeSantis and stuff like that. I mean, where do you rank all? I mean, if I guess I would put it like this: if you take Governor Haley, Governor Nome, Governor DeSantis, you put them together, and you say, okay, would I rather have any of those people, or would I rather have a JD Vance, a Trump, or a Vivek Ramaswamy? I'd rather have a Trump, Vance, or Ramaswamy. Okay. Well, if they okay, well, you just have to take. You've got to take one of these people. Governor DeSantis, and it's not fair to lump. I'll say this: Governor DeSantis, best governor in Florida. I've said it. It's not fair. His campaign was way worse than he is, and I think he's really. I don't know if he's listening to me or listening to the show or listening to us or Twitter, whatever it is. I know so many people follow you on Twitter, Paul. Some huge people follow you on Twitter, and we know some people, some big people watch this show and have definitely known me and stuff like that. We are on the radar screen, so to speak. But things I've been saying have sort of, they've somehow Governor DeSantis has found his voice, and some things I've been hoping for and saying have seemed to found their way into the campaign, his mouth, or whatever like that. I'm not putting. Let me rephrase this. I've been saying if I were him, this is what I would do. This is what I would think, stuff like that. And somehow or another, like these things have come about. So. Maybe no one saw it. I'm not in contact with the campaign or anything like that. I want to make that very, very clear, or the former campaign or anything like that. But who knows? Maybe great minds think alike, or somehow Governor DeSantis did what I thought he should do: look in the mirror and understand who is the campaign, who's running the campaign, whose name is on the campaign, and what are you really all about, and what are you really known for, and why did people love you before, and all these types of things. So it's not really fair to put Governor DeSantis in here. I'm only putting him in here to make a point, which will hopefully be clear in a second. If you take Governor Nome, Governor DeSantis, Governor Haley, right? And you say, okay, well, which is the most conservative? People would probably say Governor DeSantis. Or who's the least conservative? Governor Haley. That's what I think people would say right now, right? Would you agree with that, Paul?
I do agree with that. I think that's true. No, sorry. I just
no, you're fine.
On mute for a second.
You're good.
I didn't unmute myself.
I have another question here. And then you say, okay, well, who could you trust the most? I mean, because people have criticized that they're, to use Vivek's nomenclature, super PAC puppets, or have sold out, or listen to the donor class, or finger in the wind, or the mainstream media kind of, bullies them into submission, or whatever you want to call it. I think you would say you could trust Governor DeSantis the most, even though people have some different questions, or had some questions, or got the big book deal and change. You look at the change in Ukrainian policy, and all that type of stuff. But I think people would say probably you can trust Governor Haley the least, right? And this is my opinion. I could be 100% wrong, right? Okay, but then Governor Nome is somewhere in the middle there. Does that make sense? And so if people are, if you were to poll Trump supporters right now and say, hey, would you want Governor DeSantis on the ticket as VP right now? Paul, how many do you think would say yes to that?
Not a whole bunch, because there's some ill will, although some would.
Okay, so by that same token,
but they'd pick him over Haley and some other people.
And they'd pick him over Governor Nome. And that's my point.
I agree with that.
So if you wouldn't put DeSantis on, and I'm not saying he won't, but I'm saying if you wouldn't put DeSantis on the ticket, why would you put Governor Nome on the ticket?
Yeah, look, I think that's a fair point. Look, Governor DeSantis, as you said, I don't want to go, I'll be very short on this. Governor DeSantis is a very smart man and an excellent administrator. He is a master administrator, in my opinion. And let me say, I don't think one of the considerations for Trump is he has to have somebody that people are not eager to replace him with. I'm talking about like impeachment and stuff. I don't think anybody wants to replace Trump with DeSantis. Let me put it that way.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Maybe that's a little overstating.
I don't know about that. Because a lot of people that were involved in the DeSantis campaign, by their own admission, were part of the old Cruz crew, right? And
That's right.
the Cruz was the quintessential, like, oh, he sounds like a conservative, but he's really, some people were concerned and had some closer ties to the Bush team and Bush politics and stuff like that. And listen, Bush politics that's the top level Republican politics in the state of Texas for a long time, maybe still now. Even, there's a debate about that. And so, Karl Rove and Team Bush had and have a big hold on that state. And if you don't believe me, go ask Ken Paxton, right? Attorney General there and stuff like that. And so, and I'm not alleging anything, I'm just saying what my personal opinion of what based upon things that I read in my opinion. So yeah, and I'm a native Texan, born in Texas and stuff like that. So I my point is this: other than what Vivek is saying with identity politics and things like that, like, why would you pick Governor Nome over Governor DeSantis? And I don't think that people have full confidence, as you rightly said. I don't think people have full confidence in Governor DeSantis at this moment. I think he's done huge. I mean, from a Trump VP perspective, we love him here in Florida. Thank goodness we still have you, Governor. Appreciate you, brother. I mean, you're doing your thing, everything like that, and we need you. Now, I think that campaign was there's an article, and I can't pull it up in time. There was an article from Real Clear Politics. Let me see if I can at least reference it. That I think had really good analysis. Maybe it was in the Federalist or something like that. And anyway, the point of it is
I think it's a Federalist.
Yeah. So there's an article in the Federalist. And it was basically about how the campaign really messed up. And really it was exactly what I said, which was basically from before, which is, hold on, let me see. Let me see if I can find this real quick. I'm just trying here. And it was,
I'll just say this.
Go ahead,
too.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
No, you go.
All I was going to say was, in terms of just to reflect on how well DeSantis is doing, I sent you over a thing, or some of the things I did for prep for the show was they have kind of like the highest office vacancy rates by city, and the lowest office vacancy rate by city. Two of the lowest in the country are Tampa and Miami. Of course, you're not far from Tampa.
No.
We're broadcasting out of Tampa.
Absolutely.
Tampa's doing great. Tampa's on the move, and all of Florida's on the move. Tampa is soaring right now.
Well, that's the thing. Governor DeSantis has a track record, has a great track record. I found it right here, and I want to reference this super quick. It was, this is from Unheard by Michael Lind. You can find it on Real Clear Politics. Headline, Ron DeSantis and the failure of pseudo-Trumpism. And it's a longer article. I'm not going to be able to go through it all. I might be able to find a pull quote when Paul says something. But it was basically the whole thing of like, look, it was exactly what I said months and months ago, how ridiculous this was from a political strategy standpoint. But you could see, but it made sense to the donor class, right? But basically, I'm jumping ahead. Governor DeSantis saw the success of Trump, and said, okay, I need to capture this energy, like what they tried to do with the Tea Party back in the day, right? And what they do with the parole voters back in the day, and what they did with the Buchanan voters back in the day. I need to capture this energy, but I'm going to do it a little bit different. The donor class, they want, these globalist, left-wing economic policies, right? Open border, free trade, all this stuff. I'm just throwing some things out there, whatever it is, right? But in order to appeal to Trump, I'm going to go harder on the right, harder on the cultural issues. Those are exactly the wrong things to do, because people by and large are pretty much, I think, mostly, again, the way Silicon Valley used to be, and hopefully will be again, mostly libertarian. Like nobody cares. Just do whatever you want to do. But I want to be able to have control over myself and my family and my kids and make money and be successful and do my own thing. I don't want to be left alone. So it's almost like this libertarian capitalism, if you will, right? And autonomy and stuff. Instead of this, hard right cultural issues and fighting out the cultural wars and this oligarchy, crony capitalism, or sellout capitalism, stuff like that. That's exactly what we do not want. Okay. And so it was exactly the opposite of what you should do. from a political standpoint. And yet what this goes on to point out, I think effectively, is yet that bad political move made sense to the donor class. Like they thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like we'll fool them again on the cultural issues and do nothing when we get elected, right? But we'll throw red meat. We'll talk a good game, but we'll do these economic policies that are going to favor the multinational oligarchs and stuff like that and the globalist type of deal. And the thing is going back to what I said before, this is why I set these things up. That's why I get theoretical and practical and theoretical, is people are too smart now. Whether it's the internet, communication, talk radio, like our show here on Newstalk 1040, all these things, people are too smart now, and they feel it anyway. It's not just listening to me or Paul or the post or on Twitter, X or LinkedIn. It's people are understand. If they don't, maybe they can articulate it because they don't have all, whatever it is. Like they just think a different way, talk differently. It doesn't matter. They know it instinctually. They feel it in their gut. They look at Trump like, yeah, that makes sense. And they look at Biden and stuff like that, Bidenomics, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. When you make gas prices higher, it's not helping me out and all this type of, and everything like that. So that, I think, was the big failure right there. That was a really a good article, and I wanted to make sure that we put that out there, Paul.
Yeah, it's great. Look, we're almost done here for the show. We are looking forward to tomorrow, New Hampshire. Can't wait. We'll have a full recap next week on the show. And it's exciting. I mean, look, we could have a unified party within just a couple of days.
Absolutely. Very exciting. We're going to talk about it. I might do a special show tonight, tomorrow with Paul on our socials and everything like that. We definitely appreciate everyone out there on Newstalk 1040 here. It's been fun to do this show full, all the way here and be able to stay with you and stay hot on these issues. But big week. We had to bring it to you. So, hey, you've been listening to the John D. Villarreal Show here on Newstalk 1040, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and now X, also formerly known as Twitter. For Paul, I'm John, and everyone at Newstalk 1040, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Stay blessed.